So for the record, if I like Johnny Million, what's the most valuable thing in a human life? What do you think? Like if you had to
Water.
close, yeah, can't go long without that. What's the thing once
Uh,
you use it, you never get it back?
Hair gel.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a good
It's
point. You
really
can't.
hard to get back.
Anybody who's tried to reuse hair gel, it's interesting because Steve Bannon seems to be the kind of guy who tries to
He's really good at that.
reuse his hair gel from the day before.
No, you got me stumped. I don't know.
Ticking away the moments that make up the dull day.
That's
Time.
right. Time.
Once it's gone, you never get it back. And that's one of the things that I want people to remember that when they realize that Steve Bannon, in air quotes, only got 4 months and a $6,500 fine for contempt of Congress. Now he's going to appeal. If his appeal is not worthy of a hearing, which it won't be, because the idea is based on that the January 6th committee is unconstitutional, which is and I mean I don't pardon me if I get too legalese about this. Dumb. That's a dumb argument. That's made by a dum-dum. That's somebody who, if you're a big dum-dum, you might think that. If you're a big stupid and you work for Steve Bannon and you're trying to get him to not go to jail, I welcome you trying each thing, but you're a big dum-dum. You're a big stupid person. And legally speaking, I've watched a lot of Law and Order, so I've
Yeah.
memorized a lot of the, I've
Heard
memor
about them using that term.
yeah, yeah. That the actually it's the noise on Law and Order is actually someone saying dum dum through a
Dum dum.
processor. Dum dum. Yeah, that's what that is. That glung glung. It's the echo, and they just took the words out of it, and it's
I
kind of like
knew it.
it's like the beginning of Come Together where he's actually singing Shoot Me, but you can't tell what he's
Mm-hmm.
saying. Right. It's the same. It's the same thing. And the great
I
thing
like
about
it.
that joke that I just made up apropos of nothing is that now everyone who's listening to this show or watching this live stream will not be able to not think about that the next time they see Law and Order. Dum dum. And
Dum dum.
yeah, it's basically how the the Law and Order party, like if there was a Trump episode, somebody would go dum dum every time his like John Eastman's going, Your Honor, I object. Dum
Dum
dum.
dum.
Yeah. So Steve Bannon, man of 5 shirts and 0 bars of soap, was
So
found
many
in
shirts.
contempt of Congress this week as he's being tip of the spear, armor piercing shell of the first wave of the last thing of the hold the line of the military nonsense or whatever he talks about. Um, he's been sentenced to 4 months and a $6,500 fine. Now the $6,500 fine he'll be able to handle. As a matter of fact, they probably raised that on Rumble on his live stream that afternoon. But the one thing that nobody can gift you, except through, I guess, heightened productivity, is time.
Uh,
Right? That's once that's done, that's done. And when you're Steve Bannon's age, 4 months matters. It's like kids before Christmas. Like you and I, like Christmas will be here before we know it. But to a
yeah.
kid, Christmas is a
Takes
1,000 years
forever.
away. And for all the folks that are like, will anybody ever pay a price for this?
Yeah.
Yes, they will. But you must cross your T's and dot your I's and make sure that by the time you get around to sentencing some of these folks, the MAGA crowd that would take up arms against their own government are quite frankly over it. That's,
Man, I hope
that
so.
right now that's where Trump is rapidly approaching. That's what that number tells us with his fundraising. That's what this number tells us about Steve Bannon, is that we are swiftly approaching the jump the shark moment for them. And I would argue they've already done it. But for the MAGA crowd. Like for us, Trump jumped the shark in the bus and the Access Hollywood tape. For us,
Yes.
for me personally, his scene in Home Alone 2 was enough. I'm like, I'm done. But for the hardcore MAGA crowd, they have a choice in this situation to softly start, like, they're not jumping off the sinking ship, but they're crawling down the side and slowly slipping into the water so people don't see them going. And the only other choice they seem to have is to go full Lara Logan, is to go full QAnon. Because at a certain point, it becomes so ridiculous. The farce of Donald Trump is like the farce of Russian military strategy or Chinese economic factors. At a certain point, you either have to you have to look at reality and go, all right, I was wrong. This is just not even close to what I thought was reality at some point. Or you have to roll your eyes back into your head like a lunatic and guzzle Kool-Aid to try and keep up with everybody else. Yeah. It's the only option at this point, because there is no convincing case for Donald Trump. You have to go full Lago. Yeah, full Mar-a-Lago. Yeah, Mag-a-Lago.
Never go full Lago.
Never go full Mag-a-Lago. Which, by the way, if he hasn't thought about renaming Mar-a-Lago, Mag-a-Lago, we're going to find out when does Maggie Haberman put that memo out, that story. At one point he was floating the idea of renaming Mar-a-Lago, Mag-a-Lago. and for the record, that's what I'm going to call it from now on.
Mag-a-Lago.
Mag-a-Lago. It's actually kind of funnier to say.
Mm-hmm.
He's down there. Yeah. Right. Right. Trump is getting high in Mag-a-Lago. Anyways, the illusion of Donald Trump as an effective, functioning leader of anything is frankly absurd. It always has been. I mean, going back to when he was gutting the money that his father left to him and his siblings. He was borrowing money out of that trust fund from his sister and his brother, who passed away later, to just keep the lights on at the Trump organization. They don't build anything anymore. They just slap their name on stuff that already exists, get renovation money from another bank and by lying to them and saying this building's worth a lot more than it is, it just needs a coat of paint. I mean, they are basically it's like the morons version of Armando Mondolongo. You remember the flip this house dude who was like, you could take one house and turn it into 12, which that guy, I believe, was solely responsible for the 2008 crash, because he was on for 3 years straight, flipping houses leveraged against other houses,
ruining houses.
Totally. It just, with that glass backsplash. Yeah, that'll do it. We're gonna put a car jack under the foundation and put a new backsplash on and sell the house for twice as much. And lawsuit, get out of here. So Trump's storyline as a master businessman or a masterful political thinker is an absurdity. It's embarrassingly stupid to even think about that as a reality. It's just goofy. But on top of that, it aligns perfectly with it. Seemingly, all the people that he likes are exactly the same way. Anybody who Trump talks about as being top of their game, an ace in their field, super smart, keen, it's because he sees himself reflected in them. It's an ego act for him to even say it. And we now know that as scary as Vladimir Putin may have been at one point, Russian house fires to trigger the Chechen war to put him in position to become the prime minister and then eventually president and then rotate through and keep himself there forever. Whatever the machinations of that situation. And again, does it take smarts to maneuver in a situation like that and do it? Absolutely. Is it the kind of smarts that you would need to do it in a functioning country that hadn't just collapsed? No.
Yeah.
You're an opportunistic, thresher shark at best. You just have to be willing to be awful at the right time, which is not smart. It's just gross. And so Putin's brilliance is really just being about, like, oh, look, that woman left her screen door open. It would be easy to murder her. Like the BTK level thinking, the kind of thing that makes serial killers hard to catch because there is no rhyme or reason to what they're doing. They're just opportunistic, awful people. That's how Putin came to power. Xi Jinping came to power because he was a princeling, because his father was in the revolution with Mao, not because he was the most storied and valued person on the, in the Pez dispenser of leaders that was coming up. And his 3 lines policy can almost be directly tracked. I mean, it was obviously, there's a Ponzi scheme been going on in Chinese economy for a long time, but this was the 3 lines policy he put in place as he's tried to turn, China had a headache and he tried to fix it with a tourniquet. You know what I mean? That's essentially what's going on, which is moronic. Like, it's so dumb.
And especially depending on where you put that tourniquet.
Right, the only place you can. Obviously, blood comes from the heart, and it's obviously causing throbbing in the head, perhaps the neck. Right. Same thing with North Korea. North Korea, they're starving. They're basically making their living as a criminal organization right now. But their missiles are empty. They are basically, the reason their rockets fly up and then go into the sea and just falls because they're not rockets or missiles per se. They're just giant artillery. And the idea that they have a functioning warhead in them is absurd at this point. And so you could pretty much count on, if Donald Trump said someone was a genius who was keen and they're at the top of their game, you could count on them, when actually tested by life and real circumstance, to be absolute failures. The battle,
the opposite.
The battle plan of Vladimir Putin in Ukraine might as well be called Operation Trump Casino. They should name battalions after Trump steaks and Trump water, and you know what I mean? Like this, it's so bad. And the same thing is true of the Chinese economy. Something shocking happened at the 20th Party Congress. During it, there's a bunch of stuff that's been happening, but I'll tell you about it after the break. We have to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. If Trump says they're smart, dumb, we'll be back.
Dumb.